so much of these activities is about unplugging and reconnecting with nature, but it's also about reconnecting with people in person. And so that, I think, will be one of the biggest pieces on how those products, dovetail into people's lives and then enable the activities that they want to do in the communities and spaces that they want to play in.
This is Jon Takao, our brand new director of WGSN's Sports and Outdoors, talking about his main predictions for the future of the outdoors industry. And of course, for this particular recording, we couldn't sit inside. So we're both outside to celebrate the launch. I'm in my back garden near the New Forest in England. I've got lots of greenery around me. I'm nestled in amongst some big green trees, and my cat is also prowling around my feet. So if you hear any meowing, that's what it is. Jon, meanwhile, is in Bellingham in Vancouver in Canada. Jon's got a beautiful pink tree as his backdrop, and you can probably hear some chirping birds there acting as his backing singers during the recording. I'm Carla Buzasi, CEO of WGSN, the world's leading trend forecasting company, and you're listening to Lives of Tomorrow, the WGSN podcast about how we'll live our lives in the future. So before we talk about our brand new service, WGSN Sports and Outdoors, Jon Takao, please can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, I'm Jon Takao. I'm the director of Sports and Outdoor.
So let's getting to know you a little bit better. What was it, in your past that made you so passionate about this industry and want to work in it, and not the trend side, but just about sports?
Yeah, it's just one of those things that I've always enjoyed. There's a freedom to sport. There's a community aspect to it. I think there's a bit of accomplishment, I think. Yeah, really for me personally, like cycling became my sport as I grew up. And that's where I found my niche in the industry. And I think I found some confidence through cycling. I found a community through cycling. Yeah, in the end, it's given me a lot. And I'm so thankful to have found something that is an interest. When I was younger, I've always been a builder. You'll find a lot of industrial designers that are obsessed with Lego growing up. Cycling as an industry lends itself really well to building, and then in combination with the fitness and accomplishment aspect, it just all came together for me pretty seamlessly.
So by the time this goes out, we will have just launched our Sports and Outdoor product. So this is an industry I'm super passionate about, both personally, but also from a community perspective, and also just what it means for product design. Can you help give us some context for everyone listening today as to why we've decided to launch Sports and Outdoor and why we've done it now?
Do you remember any, and maybe you didn't get them in the UK, but the Hair Club for Men? Did you ever see any of those adverts? It's probably US television.
Yeah, you're going to have to elaborate.
The thing I remember the most, the thing that always sticks out about this is the president of the company is also a consumer. And that's how I feel about this, because I came from the sports and outdoor industry and I've always used WGSN. And that's why, when I had this opportunity to join the team, that was the thing that stuck out the most. Is I'm a user, but there's a big white space opportunity within WGSN for the sports and outdoors space and coverage.
It's sort of the opposite for those of us who've been at WGSN for a while, because there are so many of us that are so passionate about this industry. So many sports are played across the team. And when you're doing your research and thinking where as a business we should be going next, you look and say, well, what are we doing as consumers? Not even as consumers, what are we doing as people? And you do have a team which love being outside, love doing different sports. And then you think, well, then, we're a good reflection of how consumers are behaving. And there is so much about, during the pandemic, it got people back to nature and people really appreciating the great outdoors and maybe taking up new sports. But it has become more trend-led, I think, because people are looking for different ways of keeping fit and exercising. It's not just all the traditional ways. And because product design has got so much more innovative, you also, as you said, you've been translating different industries and what that means for this particular industry. But as consumers as well, we're much more switched on about how things look as well as how they perform. And I think that's what's so interesting about this, that performance is such a huge part of it. But because we expect aesthetics to be just right these days, the two come together. And when they come together really, really well, that's when you get these amazing products for this industry.
Yeah, and I feel like that's where the real opportunity is. I think you hit the nail on the head in that there's so many more options, and consumers expect so many more options that they can tailor fit their product selection to their lifestyle. Whereas I think prior it was really led by the industry, where now I think its product is really led by the consumer.
Yeah. So let's get to that point. What are you seeing? We'll get on to, the numerous different aspects of this industry that we're going to cover, but what are you seeing from a consumer perspective? What is the demand at the moment, and how do you plan to meet that need?
Sport and outdoor pursuits had gotten so serious in so many, and performance driven in so many ways, that I think, I just watched a mini documentary on a ski jumper setting the new world record, and the amount of time, research, and planning it took for a single jump like that was incredible. It was months, and they had to create a custom jump just to set a new world record. And it's not overly approachable to the everyday consumer. And so I think current space is really, we're looking for ways to offer an approachable product that also offers performance to this new generation of consumer that's a little more generalist. I think previous generations have been more found identity around their passions or pursuits, where I think these younger generations are a lot more generalist and looking for products that will fill needs across multiple aspects of their life. It might not be just for sport. It might also be for community. And so part of what we're decoding is what are the spaces that are creating this community for these consumers, and how do we best service product within those communities and product areas?
Yeah. So this is going to be the question that you get asked day in, day out, as soon as this launch is out in the world. What are your big predictions for this industry?
You touched on community already, and I think that's one of the biggest pieces of this, in that just fitness overall brings a lot of community and accomplishment. There's a lot of goal setting involved, so I think it's going to be one of the biggest, more ambiguous pieces that brands will need to figure out, is how to create this sense and foster this sense of community within their sports as consumers look for spaces to interact in person with people. So much of these activities is about unplugging and reconnecting with nature, but it's also about reconnecting with people in person. And so that, I think, will be one of the biggest pieces on how those products, dovetail into people's lives and then enable the activities that they want to do in the communities and spaces that they want to play in.
Yeah, it's so right. I mean, running clubs aren't a new thing. They've been around for decades. But the attendance of them and the passion for them, I think we're just seeing grow and grow. And we've got things like Park Run here in the UK, which are hugely popular. But I was sitting in a little restaurant in Covent Garden the other week, and I saw a Hoka run club go past. And they had their little, Hoka flags, and there was a team at the front, and they were going pretty fast. And then there was a little group, and they were a little bit slower. And this kind of went on probably for about 5 minutes, which is quite a long time when you're just sitting and watching. And then there was a big gap, and then there was the much slower runners at the back, but they still had a kind of a Hoka person with them, and the flags were still there, and everyone still looked like they were having the best time. And that it made me really happy that, you don't have to be right at the front. You can still call yourself a runner, even if you're really, really slow. And I think that just makes every sport much more accessible if you can do it just for the love of it and the way it makes you feel, rather than because you're trying to set a record or you're trying to be right at the front of the pack.
Yeah, and I think that'll, to add on to that a little bit, is just brands will need to create product that is approachable and meet customers with where they're at in their own personal journey with these sports and, outdoor endeavors. That's what creates lifelong customers also, is, they have a great experience with the product early on and then continue to use it throughout their own journey, right? So yeah, we have run clubs up here where I live that are based around food. It starts and ends at a brewery. And it's more about the finish line and the community at the end than it is maybe about the run. The run's just an added bonus, but
there's definitely been a pickup in the kind of equipment side. So we've covered the apparel side of this industry for many years. And, it's not just the bike industry where, the kind of equipment around it has proliferated. Do you think that is just because we're passionate about things, or do you think that's technology has advanced the industry so much? There are just so many different ways now to make sport more enjoyable, or coming back to the performance side, make you better, which is why there is so much other stuff included now.
Yeah, I do think I think a lot of the analytical tools and testing tools, and especially based around, the engineers in all these equipment categories, the usability, the durability has all improved, and I don't see it slowing down at all, to be honest. I've been actually watching and sort of tracking on America's Cup. It's kind of an inaccessible sport, but if you look at a lot of inaccessible things, even Formula One's a parallel example, those technologies eventually make their way down into everyday consumer product. And the boats that they're flying at the America's Cup now are incredible. And you see it in foiling products now, wing foiling, kite foiling. The efficiency that's come out of these sports and the speed and performance is incredible. And it's all happened within the last few years, to be honest. Like over the last decade, these sports have been making incredible jumps in performance. And I think it has a lot to do with the ability to test and simulate a lot of these products before you get them out in the world. A lot of the testing is done all on the computer before it's even brought out into its physical space. So, and I think we're at this, we talk about AI a lot at the moment, but it's being used in a whole host of ways. Going back to America's Cup too, I read an article recently where they were refining the foil shapes for efficiency, but they also trained an AI bot to race the boat so that they could test 24/7, not on any of the sailors' schedules. So they could compress essentially, like, in the sports and outdoor industry, like wear testing time or, field testing into a super compressed timeline. What would have taken years to refine, they're refining in months now.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. And actually, that's a kind of positive. There's so much negative stuff about AI and taking the creativity out. But if the humans being the kind of creative brains behind this, and it's going to be humans who benefit from it, the thought of it being tested and so getting into the hands of those amazing sports people sooner, that's a really exciting, positive way of using AI. I like that.
Yeah, I think there's tons of potential in it, and I think we're just scratching the surface, in my opinion, at the moment. So I think it could get really exciting for sports equipment moving forward.
Okay, Jon, we're going to get to the quick fire get to know you round. So
sure, okay.
Nothing really to do with the things we're talking about today. So first thought that comes into your head. When are you happy?
Well, I'm happy a lot, but I would say I'm most happy outside, honestly, like on a bike ride. It's one of those places that I do enjoy unplugging, and I love the focus of mountain biking where you put all of your decision making and thought process into what do I either need to avoid, how do I make my way down this trail. I like a quick trail ride, so like you have to stay super sharp and super focused, and it's nice to just to help that along. I actually really learned how to mountain bike in the dark. When I started Specialized Bikes, we would do this Wednesday night ride, and through the winter, when I joined the company, the days are short and you only have so much time, so we'd attach these really powerful headlamps to our helmets, and we would ride at night. And so I learned how to focus on this spotlight on the trail. When you reduce all the other variables, you learn very quickly what is important and how far out you need to look on the trail. And it's a lot of fun though.
Okay, what do you rarely share about yourself?
In the professional space, I don't share often, but I have a learning disability. I'm dyslexic, which was great. I forget his name. I wish I could remember. He was one of the design directors at Nike. He gave a presentation to us during my time at Specialized. And he was also dyslexic. And, growing up, it was difficult in school
Did you know you were dyslexic at that time?
We knew pretty early, so I was lucky in that way. It was a known thing, so, we had to figure out new ways. But I think it added some grit also, right? Like, I had to work harder in school for some subjects that seemed easier to other students. Sometimes assumptions are made when you have a learning disability. And so later on, we just stopped telling the school district because we had figured out ways for me to learn a little bit better, and it was nice to, not be pulled from normal classes. And sometimes they'd create programs outside, which were, could be helpful, but we found it to be more disruptive than helpful in the long run. So
yeah, it's really fascinating. Okay. However big or small, what one day-to-day life hack couldn't you live without?
You know what I use a lot? I use lists, my Lists app, all the time. I use it for everything. Work, groceries, packing. I'm a real list person, and I love it as an app because I can create location, I can pin locations that if I need to remember something, because I can be a bit scattered from time to time, just with everything going on. So my Lists app have been, just having something to check off is motivating, especially for groceries.
I like just being able to tick things off, and there's something so satisfying about that. And then I will kind of keep them on there just to see how much I've achieved in that day in terms of all my little tick circles. That are very satisfying. What was the last TV show you binged and had to recommend?
We just binged Palm Beach, I believe it's called, on Apple TV. The visuals are amazing. That era, I believe it's 60s. It's that 60s era Palm Beach. And it's very entertaining. There's lots of twists and turns. And yeah, we actually just wrapped that up last night.
Okay, final question. When and how do you prioritize yourself?
Yeah, actually, working in the bike industry, I got into the habit of riding at lunch. So I try to take where I live now, I'm a 5-minute pedal to just some great mountain biking. So I can run our dog and get in good, solid 45-minute exercise and, like an engaging mountain bike ride about 45 minutes. And so yeah, I try and take a little, if, schedule allows, I really try and carve out a lunch ride, or if my day is a little busy, especially in the summer, it's so much easier.
Okay, let's get back to WGSN Sports and Outdoors. We're going to be covering lots of categories, but can you give people a little bit of a sneak peek into the whole breadth of different sports and outdoors that we will be covering?
Yeah, so to kick it off, we have 4 sort of top line categories. We're covering cycling, and then we're calling it outdoor, but that covers the entire gamut of product, from everything from like RV camping to overlanding, van life, car camping, backpacking. So it covers the wide spectrum of any sort of outdoor pursuit and camp. So that product category is huge, and honestly, we see it more as a horizontal in a lot of ways than a vertical, because a lot of the time, to go into the outdoors and have a weekend away, you're going to be packing a lot of camping equipment. There's going to be some camping equipment adjacent to adding a kayak to your car or a bicycle, or, like a lot of the time it's whatever activities hung off or packed into the car also lives alongside all of this general outdoor equipment. And then we went a little elemental with our next one, which is snow and water. So depending on what state the water is in. It's also very seasonal, and there's a lot of crossover, we felt like, between the board sports and just all those sports in general. Skiing and snowboarders, skiers and snowboarders oftentimes will enjoy wake sports or wind sports in the summer. And then our last category is fitness and team sports. So within cycling, it's broken into experience in a lot of ways, right? So there's road, mountain, gravel. So we've broken it into experiences, and then within that, we'll cover all the, accessories, equipment, and products that feed into all those experiences. And we kind of took a similar approach as we move across the categories. So outdoor is the same. So depending on what style of camping you're doing, there's product and accessories that all kind of feed up into those overarching categories. Because, most backpackers aren't going to take a camp stove that you would take RV camping. It just won't fit in the pack, right? And so, but we did want to cover things like, we're covering things like cookware and just general expanded camp kitchen, a little bit of like outdoor living space when you get into the outdoors, depending again on what experience within that outdoor camp category that you're looking at. And then, like I said, snow water is a lot of skiing, backcountry touring, snowboarding, splitboarding, surfing, and then the way that we're organizing and tagging a lot of the subcategories and equipment is like, if you want to look at protection, or if you want to look up, like search protection on the site, you'll be able to see protection from all the different categories. So that would be helmets, optics, pads. You'll be able to see the crossover between, say, maybe cycling and snowboarding. Or if you're a helmet designer, you don't want to only look at your own category. You'll want to look at helmets and protection in other categories. So we've tried to make the terminology and taxonomy of all the products that we're covering fairly horizontal in that way, where you can search for, I'm looking for accessories. I work on accessories, but I'd love to see them from the wider breadth of all the categories that we cover.
It's super exciting. What about maybe some of your predictions for some of these newer sports like pickleball and things like that? Because there's new stuff coming, which, even 5 years ago, I hadn't heard of some of these sports. Are there any other new ones coming around that people should know about?
Yeah, we've been looking into, like we were talking about, like just that accessible category. We've noticed that snowshoeing is on the rise and bird watching as well.
No way.
Yeah, I think it's just a great way for people to unplug, enjoy nature, and it's analog Pokemon Go, maybe. But
That is brilliant. Bird watching is analog Pokemon Go. Oh my God, I'm going to use that so much in the next week.
So, the accessible sports that have a low barrier to entry, I think pickleball is great. I think pickleball will probably lead to people pursuing other paddle sports if they're really passionate about paddle sports.
So to wrap things up, are you more anxious or hopeful about the future of sports and outdoors?
Very hopeful. I'm a hopeless optimist. I think that sport will bring a lot of community to people that have maybe lost community or don't have community. Communities have started shaping and forming in different ways with these younger generations. And so I think people, honestly, like myself, that are like visual kinetic learners really gravitate to sport. And I think it brings a sense of accomplishment. And I just think that, I'm really hopeful for what's next and what's to come. And I look at how technology is influencing all of sport and outdoor, like we talked about earlier, and just the advancements that are happening in equipment. And I think it's such an exciting space that's just set for even quicker change moving forward.
That's perfect. Thank you, Jon. That was a really good answer to wrap things up on. A big thank you to Jon Takao, Content Director for WGSN Sports and Outdoor, for joining us on Lives of Tomorrow. Next week, WGSN's Create Tomorrow podcast is back with another episode where our strategists will be discussing the latest trends in the world of food and drink. I'm Carla Buzasi, CEO of WGSN, and I'll see you next time.